The galaxy thought Earth walked out because we were insulted. They were wrong. Earth walked out because the trap was finally ready. My name is Nadia Rios, Ambassador of Earth, and for 7 years I had sat inside the Concord Ring, the great diplomatic station above the neutral star Asterion. From the outside, it looked like peace made into architecture. Inside, it was a machine built to remind younger worlds where they belonged. The oldest civilization sat closest to the center platform. Earth sat in the third row from the back. Plain desk, plain marker, weak lighting. No one called it disrespect. They called it tradition. That was how the old powers survived. They gave unfairness a polite name and expected everyone else to thank them for order. That day, Earth was asking for a vote on the Helios Passage Agreement. The agreement would open a safe trade route to our outer colonies. Those colonies needed antibiotics, engine parts, water filters, and food shipments. For years, those supplies had been delayed by security reviews that never ended. I carried months of work in my hands. Route maps, legal records, colony reports, supply numbers, every detail checked twice. When Valor of the Thanari, the presiding elder, called Earth forward, I stepped onto the platform. The hall became quiet. Not respectful, just waiting. I began anyway. I spoke about children on distant moons waiting for medicine. I spoke about cargo ships forced through dangerous lanes. I reminded them that Earth had paid full membership dues, sent peacekeepers when asked, repaired relay systems no senior species wanted to touch, and shared research without demanding reward. Then Sarkun Vel laughed. The Veyrathi chief delegate leaned back in his silver chair and said, "The young species has learned to arrange documents. Perhaps one day it will learn its place." Some delegates laughed. Others looked down. That silence was worse than the laughter. I looked at Valor. He did nothing. I looked at the Thanari delegates, the ones who had called Earth a valued partner in private meetings. None of them spoke. And in that moment, my fear disappeared. Not because I became brave, because I finally became clear. I closed my folder. The sound carried through the hall. Then I removed my translator pin and placed it on the podium. Beside it, I set Earth's bronze seat marker. The laughter died. I looked at Valor and said, "Earth will not remain inside a system that mistakes patience for weakness." Then I walked away. No threat, no speech, no backward glance. The great doors opened, and I stepped out. My aide, Jonah Reed, was waiting outside. His face was pale. "The broadcast was live," he whispered. "I know," I said. "Keep walking." 6 minutes later, inside Earth's shuttle, thousands of messages flooded my comm. I ignored all of them and opened a secure line to New Geneva. The Secretary General answered instantly. "We saw everything." I looked back at the Concord Ring, still shining like nothing shameful had happened inside it. "Then activate the plan," I said. Her reply came quietly. "It started the moment you left the platform." But the walkout was only what the galaxy saw. The real attack had been prepared in silence for 8 years. Jonah sealed the shuttle channel behind 7 layers of Earth encryption. His hands moved quickly, but I could see the tension in his face. He had helped prepare parts of the plan. He knew the documents. He knew the risks. But knowing a storm is coming is different from hearing the first thunder. On the screen, the Secretary General sat inside New Geneva's emergency chamber. Behind her stood legal officers, trade ministers, fleet advisors, and 3 people from departments whose names never appeared in public reports. Earth had crossed from patience into action. "The notice has been filed," she said. For 1 second, even the shuttle felt too quiet. The document was not emotional. It was not a public complaint. It was a legal weapon, built carefully over 8 years. Earth had collected everything. every delayed vote, every blocked route, every emergency request buried inside committees, every insult disguised as procedure, every internal ruling the Assembly thought no one would ever compare. The notice listed 21 violations: trade discrimination, suppression of Earth proposals, medical access delays, improper influence by senior delegations, and at the center of it all was Article 9, an old clause in the Assembly Charter. It allowed any member civilization to suspend participation if equal representation had been repeatedly denied. The old empires had written that rule centuries ago to protect themselves from each other. They never imagined Earth would read the fine print. Jonah looked at the screen. "They will call this rebellion." "No," I said. "Rebellion breaks the rules. This uses theirs." The first official response arrived from the Veirathi within the hour. It was polished, cold, predictable. Earth was accused of damaging interstellar stability. We were ordered to return to the Concord Ring, apologize for disruption, and resume our duties. The Secretary General sent our reply. One sentence: Earth remains available for fair negotiation, not managed obedience. Jonah read it and let out a small breath. "That will make them furious." "Good," I said. "Furious people reveal what careful people hide." Then the galaxy began to answer. First came insults from supporters of the old order, then warnings, then something more important: questions. The Solari Grain Union requested Earth's legal summary. The Marin clans asked whether Article 9 could apply to biased trade courts. A small border civilization sent an unsigned message with only one line: "We thought we were the only ones." That line stayed with me, because that was how control survived, by making every wounded world believe it was alone. Then another message arrived without an official seal. It came from Aaron Vale, a junior Thanari diplomat who had been inside the hall when Sarkoon laughed. His message was short. "I should have spoken. Meet me away from the ring before the record is rewritten." Jonah looked at me. "Do we trust him?" "No," I said, "but we listen." "Where?" "Somewhere the Assembly forgot." He searched abandoned stations and found one. Blackstone Dock, near the dark side of a dead moon in the Karen Belt. Ugly, cold, off-grid. "Perfect," I said. "Send the coordinates. Tell him to bring anyone who is done whispering." The meeting was supposed to stay hidden, but the Veirathi had already decided no one was allowed to gather without their permission.
Blackstone Dock looked like the galaxy had abandoned it out of shame. It was an old refueling station attached to a dead moon. Its hull was scarred by dust storms and forgotten impacts. Half the outer lights were dead. The docking arms moved slowly like tired bones. I liked it immediately. No gold ceiling, no ceremonial seats, no elders pretending procedure was justice. Just metal, shadow, and a life support system that sounded like it was breathing through broken teeth. Jonah and I arrived 12 hours early. We checked every corridor ourselves. He scanned for hidden transmitters. I studied station logs, emergency vents, maintenance shafts, and access panels. Diplomatic training teaches you to smile first. Experience teaches you to check the room anyway. The first delegation arrived during the low light cycle. The Solari came in copper robes and breathing veils. Their worlds fed entire sectors, yet inside the assembly they were treated like a supply department with a flag. The Marin clans arrived next, 3 pale blue delegates with careful eyes. They had lost trade disputes in courts controlled by species connected to their rivals. After them came 2 small civilizations from border regions. I had seen their representatives in the Concord Ring, always seated far from possible allies. Now I understood that distance had never been accidental. Last came Aaron Vale. He came without guards. That single choice made everyone look up. Tenari officials loved symbols, escorts, and witnesses. Aaron brought none of them. He stepped into the room carrying only a small data case and the exhausted face of someone who had spent too long obeying people he no longer respected. He stopped before me. "Ambassador Rios," he said, "thank you for allowing me here." "I have not allowed anything," I said. "You chose to come. Speak plainly." His jaw tightened. "In the hall, when Sarkun insulted Earth, my delegation had the influence to stop it. We stayed silent because silence was comfortable. That was cowardice. I am sorry." The room did not become warm, but it changed. An apology cannot rebuild trust in one breath, but it can open the first door. I nodded. "Then make the next sentence useful." We sat around a cracked metal table. No podium, no ranks, no ancient order. I placed Earth's framework in the center. Equal voting procedure, open emergency medical research, independent trade review, public records of blocked motions, no secret vetoes through committee placement, no member status based on age, wealth, or territory. The Sulari delegate touched the document with trembling fingers. "If we sign this," she said, "the Veirathi will come." I did not lie to her. Yes. One of the smaller delegates lowered his gaze. "And Earth can stop them?" "Not always," I said, "but we can stop pretending they are untouchable." Before anyone could answer, Jonah's calm sounded. His expression changed first. Then he turned the display toward us. A Veirathi enforcement cruiser had arrived near Blackstone Dock. Its message came through the station speakers. "Unauthorized political assembly detected. Disperse or submit to inspection." Chairs scraped. Fear returned quickly. It always does when it has been trained for generations. I placed my palm flat against the table. "Stay seated." Then I opened a secure channel. "Captain Hale, you may begin." The delegates expected Earth to protest. Instead, they watched 4 human ships move out of the darkness.
The Veirathi warning repeated through Blackstone Dock's damaged speakers. Disperse or submit to inspection. No one in the room mistook it for procedure. It was not a request. It was an empire checking whether fear still worked. Jonah placed the tactical display above the table. The Veirathi cruiser appeared as a red symbol near the station. Then a blue point appeared behind it, another to the left, another below, another above. 4 Earth consulate ships emerged from the moon's shadow and stopped at exact distances around the cruiser. They were not large. Compared to the Veirathi vessel, they looked almost delicate. Their weapons remained cold. Their engines held steady. Their formation, however, was perfect. The Marin delegate leaned forward. "They are not attacking." "No," Jonah said. "They are making attack useless." Captain Hale's voice came through the open channel. "Kennedy Cruiser Sovereign Spear, you are inside a protected diplomatic safety field. Hold position to avoid shield interference." The Veirathi captain replied with sharp contempt. "Earth vessels have no authority to establish restrictions here." Captain Hale answered calmly, "Authority is not the issue. Trajectory is." The room watched the math unfold. The Earth ships had arranged their shield fields in overlapping arcs. If the cruiser fired toward Blackstone Dock, the energy would strike one shield, bend into another, and return along a dangerous angle toward the Veirathi hull. It was not brute strength. It was a locked door made of physics. The cruiser shifted position. The Earth ships shifted with it. Slowly, almost gently. That made it worse. The Veirathi powered their forward weapons. The Sulari delegate closed her eyes. Jonah stopped breathing for a moment. I kept my hand on the table because if I moved it, everyone would see it shaking. Captain Hale spoke again. "That action will create a hazardous rebound." 12 seconds passed.
12 seconds in which the future could have become war. Then the Varathi weapons powered down. The cruiser turned away. No shot was fired. No victory was announced. The red symbol disappeared from the display. Only then did the room breathe. Aaron stared at the empty point on the map. This was planned. Yes, I said. For how long? Long enough for us to know when not to use it. That answer mattered more than the technical explanation. The delegates understood. Earth had not been helpless inside the Concord Ring. We had simply refused to reveal every card to people who already underestimated us. The Sulari representative sat straighter. "Return to the document," she said. So we did. For 4 more hours we argued over language. The Marin wanted strict trade court rules. The Sulari demanded emergency food protections. Aaron insisted that reform must be legal enough to survive assembly challenge. The smaller delegations wanted guarantees that they would not be abandoned after signing. By the end, the first draft of the Blackstone Accord carried 7 signatures. It was unfinished, but it was alive. We transmitted it publicly at the same moment we sent it to the Concord Ring. The old powers would not control the first version of the story. By morning, the galaxy was no longer asking why Earth had walked out. It was asking who would be brave enough to follow. The Blackstone Accord did not explode across the galaxy. It spread like a crack through glass. At first, only diplomatic channels carried it. Then, independent news relays picked it up. Then, station administrators, medical unions, trade guilds, and colony councils began sharing copies with highlighted sections. Equal procedure, public records, independent courts, emergency research access. The language was simple enough for ordinary citizens to understand. That made it dangerous. Old systems survive by sounding too complicated to question. The Varathi response came quickly. Sarkun Vel demanded an emergency assembly session. He arrived wearing ceremonial battle armor instead of diplomatic robes. The message was clear before he spoke. "This accord," he said, "is an emotional document produced by unstable governments under Earth's influence. If allowed to grow, it will damage galactic order." He did not say fairness. He said order. That was the difference. Inside New Geneva, Jonah and I watched the broadcast with the Secretary General and her crisis team. Nobody interrupted Sarkun. That was his talent. He could make domination sound like responsibility if the room was polite enough. Then the smaller delegations began to answer. The Sulari representative spoke first, not with anger, but with records. She showed how food route decisions had been delayed whenever her government resisted Varathi pricing demands. The Marin displayed trade rulings where judges had private commercial ties to the winning side. A Border World delegate played audio from a closed committee session where aid to their colony was postponed because strategic patience was preferred. The words were dry. The impact was not. For years, suffering had existed in separate files. Now those files were standing next to each other. Sarkun's expression hardened. If member worlds choose disorder, then the Varathi cannot be expected to protect the roots they endanger. The threat was carefully shaped. Not war, withdrawal. Old empire strategy at its cleanest. Step back from a system everyone depends on, let fear grow, then return as the price of obedience. Minutes later, Captain Hale contacted us. 3 Varathi enforcement ships have changed course. Toward what? The Secretary General asked. Earth supply stations near the Ivara Rim. Relay stations, fuel depots, medical stores, civilian lifelines. I felt anger then, sharp and personal. Because empires rarely strike leaders first. They touch the hungry, the sick, the tired, and wait for leaders to bend. I opened a public channel. Earth will protect humanitarian routes. Any interference with civilian supply chains will be treated as a threat to the lives depending on them. The statement went out across every network. The Veirathi expected Earth ships. Instead, others moved first. Sulari grain carriers, Marin observer vessels, Loran hospital ships, Nimor patrol boats small enough to fit inside a Veirathi docking bay. None of them could defeat an empire alone. That was not why they came. They came so the next act of pressure would have witnesses. The Veirathi understood cameras could be more dangerous than cannons, so they prepared a lie before the first ship arrived.
Relay Haven was not the kind of history usually notices. It was a small supply station near the Avara Rim, built from practical materials and repaired too many times. Its docking arms were mismatched, its outer hull carried old burn marks from micrometeor storms. Inside, crews slept in narrow bunks and drank bad coffee while moving medicine, fuel, and replacement parts to colonies most assembly delegates could not find on a map. That was why it mattered. It did not symbolize power. It kept people alive. The Veirathi ships approached with weapons cold. Captain Hale studied the readings from New Geneva's tactical feed. "They are not charging weapons," he said, "but their signal arrays are active." Frown frowned. "For what?" I answered before Hale could. "To create a version of events." Seconds later, Relay Haven broadcast an emergency alert. Earth Station has opened fire on Veirathi enforcement vessels. The room went cold. Relay Haven had no weapons. Not outdated weapons, not hidden weapons. None. On the display, the Veirathi ships spread into defensive formation as if responding to an attack. Their public channels filled with outrage almost instantly. Sarkoon appeared on the assembly feed, claiming Earth had attacked lawful inspectors. His statement was too prepared. The lie had been waiting. For 1 minute, it moved faster than truth. Then the Sulari released their recording. Their grain carriers had been tracking the route through trade satellites. The footage showed Relay Haven transferring vaccine containers at the exact moment it supposedly fired. The Marin followed with sensor locks. The Loran hospital ship added medical docking records. 3 independent sources, same conclusion. The emergency alert had been forged using a stolen Earth Station code. Sarkoon's accusation broke open in public. Inside the Concord Ring, the emergency session collapsed into noise. Some delegations shouted for investigation, others demanded the Veirathi ships withdraw. Valor tried to restore order, but his voice no longer carried the same weight. Then Aaron Vale stood. He looked afraid, but he spoke anyway. The Assembly cannot condemn violence while permitting false evidence from its strongest members. Sarkoon turned toward him slowly. Aaron continued, "If this institution still has meaning, power must answer to record." That sentence changed his career forever, maybe ended it, but it also gave others permission. The Sulari backed him, the Marin followed, the Loran demanded formal inquiry. Even 2 delegations that had avoided the accord asked for the signal data to be entered into public evidence. Sarkoon realized he was losing the room, so he changed the battlefield. "The Veirathi," he said, "will no longer guarantee protection of unstable assembly routes." Across the galactic map, trade paths began flashing red. The threat was no longer hidden inside false evidence. Now it was open. Obey or the roads go dark. But when the roads began to fail, the galactic map discovered that the Veirathi had never been the ones keeping them alive. The first route delays appeared within hours. A fuel convoy stalled near the Miran Shoals. 2 medical shipments missed transfer windows in the Avara Rim. A water filtration cargo group reported navigation drift after an old relay tower failed to update. Veirathi channels blamed Earth's reckless politics. But route engineers are harder to fool than diplomats. They saw the real pattern immediately. The failing systems were not new. They were old problems human crews had been patching for years. Human engineers had maintained relay towers no senior species wanted to fund. Human navigation teams had corrected unstable star lane maps. Logistics officers from Earth had built backup routing software after assembly committees delayed upgrades through endless budget reviews. It had been quiet work, uncelebrated work, the kind nobody notices until it stops. Jonah stood with me in New Geneva's operations room, watching red warnings spread across the map. 6 more stations are asking for help, he said. How many teams can we send? Not enough. I hated that answer because it was honest. For a moment, I saw every colony behind those warnings, not dots on a screen, people waiting for medicine, children drinking carefully measured water, repair crews trying to hold machines together with missing parts. Then Captain Hale spoke from Relay Haven. Ambassador, we can route personnel to 3 stations, maybe 4. And the rest? Jonah asked. I looked at the map. We teach. So Earth opened the manuals, not summaries, full repair guides, relay calibration charts, emergency fuel lock procedures, shield tuning instructions, navigation patch codes. Materials once buried inside assembly technical archives were released through public training channels. Human engineers began live sessions with station crews across the border sectors. Some calls were chaotic, some crews barely understood the systems they had inherited. Some stations had parts so old, the manuals had to be rewritten while the repairs were happening. Still, the work moved. A Nimor crew restarted a relay tower with an Earth engineer talking them through every step. A Marin station restored docking control after 3 failed attempts and a lot of shouting. Sulari technicians repaired a cargo timing grid using a human workaround designed for storms near Jupiter. Every repaired route became proof, not of Earth's dominance, of something more dangerous to the old order. The galaxy could learn to survive without asking permission. Then Oris Station, a neutral checkpoint famous for avoiding politics, broadcast a message. Its administrator, Tal, spoke in a slow, tired voice. For 40 years, human crews answered when formal channels delayed. Oris Station recognizes the Blackstone Accord as the only active framework defending civilian access. The message was repeated by dozens of stations. Red markers began turning blue. That night, Aaron sent a private warning. Sarkoon has lost the room, but not his pride. A Veyrothi command vessel has launched. Its course is Earth. I stared at the words. A cruiser was pressure. A command vessel was theater. Sarkoon was coming to make humanity feel small, but Earth had already prepared a stage of its own.
The Veyrothi command vessel was named Crown of Veyra. It appeared on public tracking systems like a moving shadow. Unlike the enforcement cruisers, this ship was not meant for routine patrols. It was a symbol vessel, built to carry the memory of conquest. Its hull was black and silver, long as a city district, surrounded by escorts that kept a respectful distance like priests around an idol. Its course was direct, Earth. Across human space, emergency alerts sounded. Mars shelters shifted to readiness. Lunar stations sealed non-essential docks. Parents in frontier colonies watched screens in silence, trying not to let their children see fear. The Crown had not fired. It did not need to. Inside New Geneva, military advisors argued for a visible defense line. Some wanted destroyers near the outer system. Others wanted to meet the Crown before it crossed the orbit of Neptune. I understood every instinct in that room. But Sarkoon was not searching for a battle. He was searching for an image. If Earth placed warships in front of him, he could say we had militarized the crisis. If we stood aside, he could arrive like judgment.
So we chose a third answer. "Open the sole approach corridor," I said. The room turned toward me. The Secretary General understood slowly. Civilian access? Observers, press, Accord ships, anyone with a reason to be there and a camera to prove it. Jonah's tired eyes lit with recognition. We sent the invitation publicly. By the time the Crown of Vera reached the outer edge of our system, it found no battle wall waiting. It found a corridor of witnesses. Thousands of civilian vessels lined the safe approach path at regulated distance. Sulari grain carriers, Lauren hospital ships, Marin legal observers, Nimor water tankers, repair barges from stations Earth had helped train only days earlier. Each ship broadcast its purpose. This vessel carries food through routes repaired by human crews. This hospital ship uses treatment models shared by Earth. This station crew survived because Earth answered our distress call. This colony supports equal law. The messages formed a living record. Sarkoon had wanted to face Earth alone. Instead, he faced every proof of why Earth was not alone. Then Aaron Vale appeared on the public channel. Behind him stood half of the Thanari delegation. "The Thanari will not support military pressure against Earth," he said. "We call for immediate review of Verafi conduct." The Crown of Vera slowed. For a long time it held position. Then it turned away. Relief moved through New Geneva, but nobody mistook it for peace. Sarkoon sent one final transmission. "You have gathered sympathy," he said. "Do not mistake it for authority." An hour later, the Verathi filed an emergency motion, permanent removal of Earth from the Star Assembly. Unable to frighten Earth with a flagship, Sarkoon moved to erase us with procedure.
The removal vote was scheduled with impossible speed. Normally, assembly motions moved slowly through committees, reviews, procedural checks, and translation periods. Sarkoon's motion crossed all of that in hours. That was how we knew he was afraid. The official charge was destabilization of galactic order. The real charge was influence. Earth had shown other civilizations where the locks were. If we remained a member while supporting the Blackstone Accord, every forgotten world would have a legal path to challenge its own treatment. Sarkoon needed Earth removed before courage became organized. The emergency session filled the Concord Ring beyond capacity. Press observers crowded the galleries. Neutral recorders hovered beside translation stations. Accord signers sat together openly, refusing the old seating habits. Earth's chair remained empty. That emptiness did more than any banner could. I appeared by transmission from New Geneva. I was not there to plead for membership. Earth had already suspended participation. We were there because if the Assembly wanted to judge us, the galaxy deserved to hear the evidence first. Sarkoon spoke with perfect control. He called Earth impatient, emotional, ambitious beyond maturity. He warned that young civilizations could not be allowed to rewrite systems they barely understood. Then he said the sentence that ruined him. Earth's contributions are replaceable. The first witness was a Lori doctor. She showed treatment records from an outbreak Earth researchers had helped stop after the Assembly Medical Board failed to deliver a solution. The second was a Sulari route manager. He displayed food distribution maps built on human navigation updates. Then came Tal from Oris Station. His voice was quiet, but the hall listened. "If Earth's work disappears from our systems tomorrow," he said, "people will die next week." No one interrupted. Record after record followed. Mediation logs, repair reports, emergency supply histories, scientific exchanges. Not praise, evidence. Earth had not been ornamental. We had been load-bearing.
Aaron Vale stood after the last witness. He said, "I vote against removal, and I submit a counter-motion." Sarkoon's eyes narrowed. Aaron continued, "Formal investigation of Veirathi misconduct, public review of blocked member motions, immediate reform of voting procedure." Before Valor could respond, the lights flickered. Every screen in the grand hall went black. Then an ancient symbol appeared, the ancient archive, a system most delegates believed was ceremonial. It spoke in a voice older than any living government in the room. Sealed records are opening under emergency integrity law. Sarkoon stood sharply, but the archive did not wait for permission. Before the Assembly could vote on Earth's future, its oldest memory system revealed why humanity had been restrained from the beginning.
The founding archive filled every screen in the Concord Ring. Its voice was calm, but the effect was violent. Not physically, historically. Integrity law activates when a member civilization faces removal while unresolved charter violations remain sealed. In New Geneva, Jonah turned toward me. "Did we trigger this?" "No," I said. On the assembly feed, Aaron Vale stood pale and silent. He had done it. Not with weapons, not with speeches. With access codes old Zanari families pretended not to remember. The first file opened, Earth's Admission Review. For 23 years, the public record had said Earth received junior placement because we lacked experience. The sealed assessment said something different. Rapid growth civilization, high adaptive recovery, high innovation under pressure, unpredictable alliance formation. The room changed as those words appeared. The old empires had not looked at Earth and seen a child. They had seen a future competitor. The next file showed a private Veirathi Thanari recommendation. Limit strategic route access, delay voting influence, encourage procedural dependency, avoid direct confrontation until containment options are mature. The language was clean. That made it worse. More records followed. Earth's science proposals redirected into inactive committees. Trade motions delayed after private senior member meetings. Human diplomats seated away from younger delegations. Peacekeeping contributions minimized in official summaries. Every quiet humiliation had been part of a pattern. The smaller civilizations reacted first, not all with anger, some with terrible recognition. They began demanding their own sealed reviews. Suddenly, old wounds had structure. Sarkoon raised his voice. "These documents require context." Aaron turned toward him. "That is what they are finally receiving." Then Valor rose. The presiding elder looked as though centuries had fallen onto his shoulders at once. "The Thanari delegation withdraws support for Earth's removal," he said. A murmur spread through the hall. One by one, others followed. The removal motion collapsed before the vote could begin. But the archive continued. A final file appeared, locked under Veirathi Thanari Security Authority. Protocol Dawn Chain, Containment Strategy for Human Expansion. No one spoke. In New Geneva, the Secretary General stood slowly. Jonah whispered, "Containment?" I could not answer immediately. For years, Earth had believed we were being dismissed. The truth was colder. We had been studied, measured, restricted. Not because they thought we were nothing, because they were afraid of what we might become if allowed to stand freely. When Protocol Dawn Chain opened, Earth learned that membership had been a cage from the very first day. The archive opened Protocol Dawn Chain line by line. It had been drafted before Earth's first full assembly session. The Veirathi led it.
Some Thanari officials supported it. Several inter-system powers approved the plan without public debate. Its purpose was not extermination. That would have been too obvious. Its purpose was controlled dependence. Earth would be welcomed, praised when useful, restricted when growing, and delayed whenever influence began forming. Our colonies would receive just enough access to remain stable, but not enough to become independent from assembly-controlled routes. Scientific exchange would be monitored. Diplomatic alliances would be slowed. Trade expansion would be redirected. If Earth resisted, supply access to outer colonies could be frozen under administrative review until New Geneva accepted corrective guidance. Jonah's voice was barely audible. They were willing to pressure civilians? Yes, I said, without calling it violence. Inside the Concord Ring, the Sulari demanded the names of every signer. The Marin called for tribunal authority. The Lauren delegation asked how many medical delays across the galaxy had been caused by similar hidden policies. Then the archive displayed signatures. Sarkun Vel, valor of the Fenari, others from governments that smiled across polished tables while helping build a cage. Aaron looked devastated. He did not defend his people. That was the first honest thing he could do. Sarkun remained upright, proud and alone. You judge difficult responsibility from the comfort of youth. Humanity grows faster than wisdom. We protected the galaxy. I asked New Geneva to open my channel. My face appeared above Earth's empty seat. Sarkun, I said, you were never protecting the galaxy from our foolishness. You were protecting your authority from our possibility. The hall quieted. I continued. Humanity is not perfect. We have broken things. We have fought each other. We have failed often and loudly. But when your people were sick, we sent researchers. When stations failed, we sent engineers. When negotiations collapsed, our mediators entered rooms your officials had abandoned. I looked toward Valor. You accepted our help and denied our standing. The Secretary General stepped beside me. Earth demands termination of Protocol Dawn Chain, public release of all related records, and full reform of member rights. Aaron raised his hand first, then the Sulari, then the Marin, then the Lauren, then others, slowly at first, then faster. Sarkun gave a bitter smile. You judge difficult responsibility from the comfort of youth. Humanity grows faster than wisdom. We protected the galaxy. I asked New Geneva to open my channel. My face appeared above Earth's empty seat. Sarkun, I said, you were never protecting the galaxy from our foolishness. You were protecting your authority from our possibility. The hall quieted. I continued. Humanity is not perfect. We have broken things. We have fought each other. We have failed often and loudly. But when your people were sick, we sent researchers. When stations failed, we sent engineers. When negotiations collapsed, our mediators entered rooms your officials had abandoned. I looked toward Valor. You accepted our help and denied our standing. The Secretary General stepped beside me. Earth demands termination of Protocol Dawn Chain, public release of all related records, and full reform of member rights. Aaron raised his hand first, then the Sulari, then the Marin, then the Lauren, then others, slowly at first, then faster. Sarkun gave a bitter smile. You may win procedure, you cannot make old powers kneel. I answered before the room could absorb his words. We are not asking anyone to kneel. We are ending the idea that someone must.
That was the moment the conflict changed. It stopped being Earth against the Veirathi. It became the galaxy against the architecture of fear. The final vote would decide whether the assembly could become something new or remain a beautiful room built to hide obedience.
The final session began one day after Protocol Dawn Chain was exposed. The Concord Ring had never held so many witnesses. Delegates stood along the walls. Press observers filled every gallery. Translation systems ran at full capacity. Across planets, ships, colonies, and stations, millions watched a procedure that had once seemed distant and boring. Now everyone understood. Procedure could decide who received medicine, who got trade access, who was heard, who disappeared into a committee. Earth's old seat remained empty throughout the opening, not because we had no place, because the room had to face what that seat had meant. I appeared from New Geneva with the Secretary General beside me. Jonah stood just behind us, exhausted but steady. Captain Hale joined from Relay Haven. Representatives from Accord worlds appeared across linked screens. Inside the hall, Aaron Vale stood among the Thenari. Valor had resigned before the session. His final statement admitted failure, accepted responsibility, and asked his people to support reform. It was not forgiveness. It was record. The first vote terminated Protocol Dawn Chain. It passed. The second released all sealed records related to membership manipulation. It passed. Then came the vote that mattered most: equal member status. No ranking by species age. No hidden veto through committee control. No buried motions without public record. No inner circle seating. No protected procedure for old empires. One member civilization. One full voice. The votes appeared slowly. Sulari, yes. Marin, yes. Lauren, yes. Nemor, yes. Thenari, yes. Then came smaller worlds that had never challenged the center before. Some delegates cried, some sat frozen, some looked at their own hands as if they had just discovered they could move them. At last the result appeared. Motion passed. The hall did not erupt. The sound was deeper than applause. Relief. The release of generations who had mistaken fear for tradition. Sarkun Vel rose and left without speaking. No one stopped him. No one bowed. No one followed. That was the defeat he had never prepared for. Not destruction. Irrelevance. 3 months later, Earth returned to the Concord Ring. But the hall had been rebuilt. There were no rows anymore. No front, no back, no center claimed by age. The desks formed a true circle, each one the same distance from the speaking platform. Earth's new marker was simple. So was everyone else's. I held the old bronze marker before the first reformed session began. Jonah stood beside me. "Do you miss the old room?" he asked. "No," I said, "but I want to remember it." Aaron approached and placed a small Thenari memory stone on Earth's desk. "My apology," he said, "recorded permanently." I nodded. "Then it belongs here." The session opened. When Earth was called, no one laughed. No one looked away. I stood and placed both hands on the desk. Walking out had not been the victory. It had been the first honest step. The real victory was this room, rebuilt so no civilization had to shrink to fit inside it. I leaned toward the microphone. Let us begin again. May this message strengthen your faith and renew your hope. Thank you for staying until the end. If this touched your heart,
Like, share, and subscribe to Astro Realms for more uplifting content. May God's blessings overflow in your life. See you soon.